Okay, guys, welcome back to Matrix Uploaded. We're going to look at another example which I think is very, very important for exams. Let's have a look here. If we read the slide, Lebo is passionate about building models and decides to build some to sell. He's got a business going here. His fixed cost is 200 Rand. Okay, that's very important in this thing. When you've got a business and you're building something, there's a fixed cost. He has to buy materials and stuff. So his fixed cost is 200 Rand. And then let's read on. It says, and each model costs him 60 Rand to make. There's costs involved. If he's producing, say he's producing a painting or something he's painting, there's going to be the paint, the canvas, all those things that will affect what he's got. He's got his initial costs. Maybe he wants to go and hire a studio. That's his fixed cost. And then he's got they call it the variable costs, the costs of making each model. Okay, then he wants to sell it and make profit. So let's have a look. They are time consuming to make, so he sells them for 60 Rand. So he's got fixed costs. It costs him 60 Rand, so he wants to sell them at 100 Rand each. Okay, now the first question is write down an equation to represent Lebo's expenses. Okay, now remember he's got expenses and then he's got an income that he's making. So let's see what his expenses will be. Very important, watch this. Well, firstly, his expenses, it starts off with a fixed cost of 200 Rand. Okay, then he's got 60 Rand multiplied by the number of models that he intends to make. Okay, so in other words, if his number of models that he makes, let's call it M for model. If he's got 200 Rand plus 60 Rand, say he makes 2 models. Okay, his expenses would be 200 plus the 60 times the 2. Okay, but we need an equation for this. So let's have a look here. Well, expenses would be the fixed cost of 200 plus 60 Rand times the number of models that he makes. Okay, so very, very important this. Now let's look at number B. It says create an equation that represents Lebo's income. Well, what does he sell each model for? 100 Rand multiplied by the number of models. So if he sells 5 models, he's going to make 100 times 5. 500. He wants to make profit. So let's check this out. The income is 100 Rand times the number of models sold. So it's 100 times M. There are the equations. Okay, now let's explore this a little bit. Let's look at his expenses. We're going to draw a graph and let's look at his income and see what happens. Well, let's go further. What about his expenses? If he has a look, if we've got 200 plus 60, if he makes no models, he hasn't made any, his fixed costs are 200. Then if he makes 1 model, his expenses would be 200 plus 60 times 1, which is 260. If you look at the 60 times 2 models is 120, and 120 plus 200, the fixed cost is 320. So to make 2 models, it's going to cost him 320. Now let's continue this on. Okay, for 5 models, 6 5s are 30, so it's 300. 60 times 5, 300 plus 200 is 500. And so we go on. If he makes 10 models, his expenses will be 80. If he makes 20 models, 20 times 60 plus 200 gives you 1,400, 1,400. Now we can represent this in a table and we can represent it in a graph. So let's have a look here. I'm going to go to a sheet of paper quickly. Now have a look at the number of models. His expenses, if we have a look, if we just go through the expenses, was 200 Rand there. If we go back to the slide, let's look at the slide. For 1 model, okay, for 1 model is 260. So let's go back to the sheet of paper, 260, and let's fill in all the information. For 2 models, the expenses would be that. Then it's 500 there, and then 800. And let's look at the slide. And for 20 models, it's 1,400. Let's put this all into a table, and then let's draw the graph. Now, if we look at this one was 1,400. Okay. So that gives us a lovely representation of his expenses. Now I'm going to go to a graph and draw all this information on a graph. Have a look here. If we take our little graph here, okay, let's have a look. After naught, okay, naught gives him 200. So if you look at this, the number of models, no models, he started at 200. Let's put a dot there. Now, for 1 model, the expenses are going to be 260. So let's go and have a look here. So after 1, so we go 200 and, okay, it's 250. It's about there. Okay, we'll put a dot there for 260. And then what about for 2 models? Okay, 2 models is 320. 2 models is 320. It's about there. Okay, and then for 5 models is 500. So for 5 models is 500 there. Okay, for 10 models, Okay, it's 800. So for 10 models, we go up to 800 there. And if you go to 20 models, it's 1400. So 20 models goes up to 1400 there. Okay, great. Okay, now we can draw this with a line. Okay, have a look at it. It looks something like that. There's a line. We can draw that like that. And that will be for his expenses. Okay, now what about his income? If you look at his income quickly, if we have a look here, the income, let's go to the slide, is going to be like this. It's going to go for naught. Models is naught because he hasn't produced. Then it's for one model is 100 and 200. So if we go to the graph, so this is going to be naught, going to be 100, 200, and etc. So if we draw this on, what we've got here is very quickly you go naught, naught. One is 100, 2, 2, and you can actually draw this 200, and so we go on like this, and we get a graph that does this. And there's a whole lot of maths that comes into there, bearing in mind that he can, this is his income thing, and we've got a whole lot of maths that can come out there. And we'll talk about this a little bit later. So watch out for this. In the next lesson, we're going to be dealing with this in a lot more detail. So guys, it's been great being with you. And from my side, we'll see you around. Take care, and remember, Mzansi for sure. See you soon.